Hello, everyone. My name is David Gennaro. I'm the town manager for the town of Uxbridge. This is part of a two-part segment that we're running on the spring annual town meeting warrant and the special town meeting warrant that's running within the spring annual. We thought that we'd separate Articles 19 and 20 from the main warrant and put them into a separate show by themselves. These are the two disposition of town-owned land properties. This is Article 19 and Article 20 in your town meeting warrant. Warrants will be available at Town Hall starting this Thursday, which I believe is April 29th or April 30th. They'll be at Town Hall, they'll be at the library and at the Senior Center. We encourage you to come in and pick one up prior to town meeting. But we wanted to talk about Articles 19 and 20. These are dispositions of town-owned property on two parcels. One is at Hazel Street, the old landfill, and this is the purpose of this discussion is for 285 Sutton Street, also known as the 100-acre lot. Just to give you a little bit of background on this particular property, the Board of Selectmen last fall charged me with finding some method to have the 100-acre lot, number one, not only be preserved, but number two, generate some income from the town. It's a significant sized property. The fields sit on one end and obviously provide a public use. The rest of the parcel at this particular point, aside from the area that's used by the community gardens, is vacant. There's some grow over happening in there, and if we don't do something with that lot, eventually it's going to slowly but surely turn back into forest land. So the goal was to find something to do with the property. So this is part of a two-phase look at how to preserve the property and actually have it generate a little bit of income. One thing we're looking at is, and we'll talk about this in just a second, we're looking for a town meeting to authorize the use of 15 acres of that land for use as a solar farm that we would be collecting a lease payment on and a pilot agreement as well. A pilot is a payment in lieu of tax agreement. So between the lease and the pilot, we would be taking some income in for the solar farm being sited on the property. The second phase of that is what to do with the rest of it. I believe it's 118 acres all told. If you take out the soccer fields and the community gardens, there's still a rather significant piece of land, even not including that 15 acres. What we're looking to do with the remaining acreage, and we've been in touch with a local resident, we're looking to have that cleared and farmed. That particular part of it will not generate much income for the town. However, it will allow that parcel to be maintained in its current state without being overgrown by, weeds, which turn into woods, which turn into forest over time. And we won't have to spend town resources trimming and clearing that every year. So that's the overall goal. With that in mind, we went out and we did an RFP with the blessing of the Board of Selectmen to put solar on 15 acres of that property. The area that we chose was on the farthest point away from the soccer fields. So on the far northern corner, edging towards the road. There's basically a dip in that area, which we'll talk about a little bit, which would take any potential array out of public sight quite a bit more just because of the natural topography of the land. So we designed an RFP with that site in mind. We put it out. There were two bidders. It was due on January 15th. The two bids came in, and as a result of the examination of the bids and discussion with the potential bidders, that brings us to where we are today. I'm sitting with two representatives from Mass American Energy. This is the company that we've chosen to do the development on the parcel. And we'd like to just take a few minutes, go over what's going to go on there, how it's going to be set up, and how it will likely affect the view, the property itself, you know, and what the overall impact is. So with no further ado, I'd like to talk to both David and Sven from Mass American. Guys, if you could just introduce yourselves, give us a brief company background, we'd appreciate it, and we can go from there.
Great, great. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Thank you, David, and we're looking forward to this opportunity. Mass American is a Marlboro-based company right here in Massachusetts. We're a solar development and energy efficiency company. My partners and I have 20-plus years in the solar and renewable energy space. We're actually an SREC and REC brokerage firm, which is a big part of cash flows with solar farms and solar development. And we have a great deal of background in policy creation, as one of our partners was really responsible for participated with the creation of the REC program back in 1999. And that's who we are. My background personally was serving town meeting member in Framingham, serving on the Ways and Means Committee, and got exposed to solar about 6 years ago when we reviewed our own town a PPA for the school system, which we rejected, and are still, as a town, looking to strike a better deal. And I really had a desire to make sure that Mass American was turning over every stone to find the best financing opportunities for municipalities and nonprofits, and we feel confident that we've done that. And then I'd like to introduce Sven Amirian.
And my name is Sven Amirian. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Mass American Energy. And I've spent a lot of time in the municipal sector. I was a city councilor in the city of Haverhill. And subsequent to that, I was the president of the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce. So I've done a lot of negotiations and dealings with municipalities. And I've been able to bring that experience to Mass American Energy and merge that with the energy sector. And it brings me a lot of pleasure. As David mentioned, Mass American focuses a lot of its efforts on solar farms with municipalities. And we feel that, that there was an untapped opportunity there to add more value and to give more back to the municipalities. And that's really what we're trying to do here. We are showing municipalities that solar can be a extremely low impact development and use of land that basically saves the land for future use. And as we get into the presentation, we're going to show you how you're essentially banking land that can be returned to its natural state after the solar use, and that's one of the benefits. So we'll get to that in a moment.
Great. Thank you, Sven. Could you take a couple of minutes and just give me a description of the array, how big it is, what it's going to be generating, just to give the audience a background of what they're going to be seeing there if it's approved at town meeting.
Sure. We'll be referring to slides throughout the presentation. We have developed a slideshow with an aerial flyover, as well as what the solar array is going to look like from the ground. And so we're proposing a 4 megawatt solar installation. That's a 4 megawatt DC. And really, you know, the part that the town is concerned about is what is this going to produce for revenue for the town, and what impact is it going to have on the land. And really, so, you know, we're looking at a 100-acre lot, 100-plus acre lot, and we're talking about using less than 10% of that 118-plus acre lot for the actual solar development. So 4 megawatts, we're expecting that more or less to take up 15 acres of land. And we're going to show you in these slides that the visual, the noise impact is going to be negligible for the town and for the people in the direct vicinity, the abutters, and the people who are enjoying the use of the soccer fields and the community gardens as well.
Okay. Well, why don't we get right to the slides and give us a little description as we go through them.
Sure. So the first slide we're looking at right now is what the site would look like from approximately 100 feet in the air. And it's worth mentioning that there is no way to actually achieve this view because there are no elevations that are 100 plus. I mean, this is a flat piece of land. So actually, when you're standing on Sutton Street, you've got a row of trees that screen the soccer field and the proposed site. As you mentioned, it's in the northern corner. And what we have, most importantly, is a screening method here. We're talking about building a 6-foot tall berm. And again, this is flexible, and once we actually do the civil engineering, that berm can be adjusted up or down to completely screen the solar farm from any view at at a zero elevation. And David, if you can forward to the next slide, should we go forward? So here's what we're talking about for view. There is no view of the solar installation from the soccer field and the surrounding fields. So that's a great benefit. You're not going to know that this thing is there. You're not going to hear this solar array. There is no audible hum or electronic interference or any noise that you're going to be able to detect. So within 50 feet or outside of 50 feet, it is virtually silent, and there is no abutter within 50 feet, nor are the soccer fields within 50 feet as well. We 1,300. That's 1,300 feet, right? But what I'm saying is, as far as the sound goes, there's no audible detection. Yeah. David, if you want to go back to 2 slides. So that is another view from above, 120 feet. Gives you an idea of what the panels are going to look like. We're using a company called 10K Solar. They're a Minnesota-based company that does their manufacturing and assembly here in the United States. It's a very low-profile system. These solar panels do not extend up more than a few feet. There aren't any large arrays that extend above that 6-foot tall chain link fence, and in fact, the berm screens the chain link fences as well, so that's not visible. The access road that comes in from the north and the west won't be visible as well, and we're going to be using existing utility poles that are already on the site. So there's not going to be any additional impact visually to the landscape.
So there'll be no new poles going up for this?
That's correct. We will either use the existing poles, or we will replace the existing poles in the same locations, with an upgraded pole.
Okay. Now, in looking at where there is no solar panels, the road, the walkway, what material is that going to be constructed?
So that is all gravel.
Okay.
What we end up doing is we bring in a geotech fabric to keep weeds down, and then put 4 to 6 inches of crushed and washed gravel. Again, to keep weeds down, we wash the gravel so that there are no dust and dirt particles in there. And it's a very clean and neat looking array, and the same thing is going to happen with the road. We're not using any impervious surfaces, so we're not affecting drainage or runoff or anything like that.
Okay. And the most important thing is obviously everything being, so what you're saying is everything that's going on this field at the end of 20 years, if the town so decided at the end of the lease, all of this would be removed and the land would be returned to its natural state.
Right, exactly. What we're doing here is we're not penetrating the surface of the ground either with concrete piers or helical screws or anything like that. And that can be done in a low impact manner too. But we're just talking about laying this system on a level gravel surface with concrete ballast blocks in the trays of the arrays to keep it down to the ground. Okay. And this is a very low impact method. And like you said, after 20 years, this can be removed. We take the topsoil that we use to build the berms, we level the surface, and we return this to its natural state, pre-construction.
Okay.
There's a shot of the berms that are going to be facing southwest, south, And again, we're using the topsoil from where the array is going to be going to build up that berm, and then we'll be putting vegetation on top of that berm.
Okay. So it's just not going to be a pile of dirt, basically, going around it.
Right.
It'll be a fully vegetated berm.
Right, right.
Okay.
Soil erosion, everything else. We want to see that stay intact for 20 years. It'll be at a pitch and a slope that doesn't cause erosion, but yeah, it'll be fully landscaped.
All right. And who would be responsible for maintaining everything behind the berm? 'Cause,
That's on the solar developer and the ownership
Okay.
group of this array. So everything behind, that's what we're leasing. We're responsible for its maintenance and upkeep in compliance with the town and everyone else.
okay.
This is another shot further back. You can see the soccer fields in the bottom right corner. I believe that might be the community garden right
Community
next door.
Gardens is right here. Here's the parking area.
And you can see we've developed an access road following the natural hedge line here. And this line right here is the existing utility poles that run across the property. You can see it's cutting through this wooded area. And we're going to be tapping into or running poles directly down that. So we're not adding anything that's not there from overhead lines from a utility perspective. So it's very clean.
Right.
And you're right, at the end of 20 years, the gravel is worth money. You know, so people are going to want to take that out, spread the berm back over, and you can return it to pastoral land.
Okay, just hold it right there for a second. One thing that I would like to point out, just as one question that I received was, had to do with removing any of the existing forest in the back, because it's my understanding that that's a rather good hunting area. One of the things that we set up when we set up the original RFP is we made sure that we sited it within the field, so there is no disturbance of any of the forest behind the actual array, so that ground will remain available.
Yeah, that's correct. We're not going to, this is north, and that's northeast, and again, north. So there's no reason for us to be trimming, pruning, or doing anything with the forested area behind it. And I think the land lease is actually just up to the edge of the wooded area. And the only thing we would ask is that aim high. All right, so
Absolutely.
So you know, woodcock and grouse. You know, let's keep your shots up high, and we'll leave it at that. Maybe we need a berm across the back.
That might be something to consider.
Right, it might be. It might be.
You know, just because you do have people that will be in the wooded area, you might want to just do it. I mean, that's something
I think
might be considered.
There's a lot of topsoil there that we're going to push around because we do not want vegetation to grow through this.
Right.
It's something we have to maintain. So by removing the topsoil, we get down to a more secure surface area, and again, we cover it with geotech fabric to keep seed from blowing into the area. You want a washed, crushed reclaimed concrete is another alternative we use too. And you want that seed to fall through, not sit in dust and germinate. So there really is a lot of value at the end of life of the system, which is truly over 30 years.
And just another thing to point out, as part of the RFP, one of our concerns would be what if the developer built the array, went bankrupt after 2 years, and we had no use for the array. We didn't want to operate it for whatever reason. Just for the viewing audience's benefit, we do require in both of the arrays that we're looking to site on town-owned land, we do require a performance bond for the removal of the system in that case. So that'll be part of the terms of the final agreement. So if anything happens in those intervening years, we have something that's paid for that will have the array removed.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a bond that we pay and we put up front, and it's really, you know, it's at the end of 20 years, you don't want the array, and you know, you want to redevelop this land for something else. And you're right, this asset may have been sold to another entity, and who knows about their solvency at that time. And this bond's in place to guarantee that the property get restored.
Right. I think the first thing that obviously you're concerned with is the risk to the city, and so mitigating any and all risks is what you do.
Absolutely.
And we understand that as a solar developer. We've worked with a lot of municipalities in the past, and you know, we tailor what we do to first address risk for the community, and then we look at what's the best use for the land and how we can bring value and put in a system that's going to generate over $100,000 a year for the town that can be used for whatever you need it to.
Absolutely.
And at the end, have no impact, and it can be removed, and you've still got this beautiful piece of land.
Mm-hmm. Do you mind if I just elaborate a little bit on, this is a low voltage system. I know you have other solar farms here in town, and some of them were in the early stages of the solar industry, let's say, when it really started to go to scale. This is a low voltage system, meaning that inside the solar array itself, inside these paneled areas, it's 58 volts. It's not high voltage. And that's a safety issue, so we factor that in. It turns to 480 volts. It's not detailed here, but at the end of each one of these branches, we call it a branch, you'll run AC power, and you'll run it back to a central, call it a switch gear, before it's going to be hitting a transformer and stepping up to 13.8 voltage, which is what the utility lines are running at. But it is low voltage all throughout here. And another issue, and it's noise. I really want to point this out. We do a microinverter raised bus assembly, so there is not one central inverter. And when you have one central inverter, that is where you'll get a hum and a noise from it. And it does become a concern for the abutting neighbors if they're close by. We don't have that issue. It's really when you're in the field, standing here, you can't hear it. There's nothing to hear. You really have to be ear to the ground to be able to pick up any noise from the inversion process. And we basically have DC power on the modules, and it gets converted to AC power, which is what the utilities are running, and we run in our homes.
Okay. So why don't we just take a minute, go through the rest of the slides?
This is, again, the slide you
Sure.
saw from 100 feet in the elevation. This is standing on the ground in the soccer field. You're 1,300 feet away from this position. This would be looking from due south. This is an aerial shot, another aerial shot. This is, if you're standing right at the berm and you're a tall person, maybe you'll just look over it. And we have our labels here on the left. That's really about it for the shots. We have another video of additional shots that put together, and I believe they're going to show that as this program goes forward.
Let's just talk for a moment about what the planned use is for these lease payments. As I mentioned earlier, we're really talking about two separate leases contained in Article 19 and Article 20, which, depending on how the negotiations go, how everything shakes out in the end, it could be, my guess would be in the range of $175,000 a year between the two. What our goal is with these is it would be very easy to put it back into the general fund budget and just spend it on many things that are needed. However, in looking at the budget this year, and we'll be talking about the budget in the other show, our goal here now is we see that looking around town there is a specific need regarding road maintenance, road repairs, and overall DPW equipment. So I have had a conversation with the school administration, with the Board of Selectmen, and I believe that the goal that we would do with these particular funds, if approved by town meeting, is we are going to look for them over a 20-year period to be given over to DPW. It's an easier way to do it because obviously if you look at the infrastructure needs around the town and the DPW equipment needs in general, they are substantial. I don't pretend to think that even these funds, if approved, are going to fix every problem and make everything work. It's a drop in the bucket. But the only way that you can start making progress against what we need to do is to start finding funding sources. So we see this as a viable funding source. We understand that there may be some concerns about how this may alter the look or aspect of the fields. We've done everything we can in working with the winning bidder here to make sure that it is as low impact as possible. And I think in looking at how it's been cited, it would appear that would be the case. So we're asking town meeting to consider this, and we're certainly asking you to come out, make your voice heard one way or the other. But we're hopeful that we've addressed a lot of the concerns, at least regarding the Sutton Street piece here. So we will have some materials available at Town Hall that you will be able to take a look at, just to give you a better idea of some of these aerial pictures that we have here. I encourage you to call my office with any questions whatsoever. And aside from that, I'd just like to thank David and Sven for coming in. It was great meeting with you gentlemen, and we will have you on hand at town meeting to answer any questions as long as the moderator agrees, and we'll go from there.
Great. We look forward to it. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next article we're going to discuss is Article 19, which is the disposition of town-owned property and authorization of a payment in lieu of tax agreement for 558 Hazel Street. Hazel Street is a sludge landfill. It's down by the sewer treatment plant. It's been closed and capped for a number of years. We went out and did an RFP to site solar upon this particular landfill. There's a lot of ability and encouragement by the Commonwealth to take these particular properties that serve no practical purpose and use solar as a methodology for municipalities to actually realize some revenue for them. So this is this article and Article 20, the Sutton Street articles, are the two leases of town-owned fields that we've been discussing. For this one, I'd like to introduce Mike Marsh from Blue Wave Capital. Mike's company was the successful proposer on the Hazel Street property, and we've brought him down here to give the viewing audience a thorough explanation of what we're going to be siting there and how it's all going to work. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you, David.
Can you tell us a little bit about the company, yourself, the company, and what you're proposing to do on the property?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, my name's Mike Marsh. I'm the Director of Project Development at Blue Wave Capital. Blue Wave Capital is a Boston-based firm, about 35 professionals, engineering, finance, real estate development. And we've been active developing solar projects in the Commonwealth since essentially there was a market to develop solar projects in the Commonwealth. And our founder is a gentleman by the name of John DeVillers, who's been very active in Massachusetts environmental policy and state government for a long time. And we're really realizing a vision of using clean energy to provide economic development, as you mentioned, and also to roll out a clean energy base in Massachusetts instead of importing carbon-heavy energy from out of state. So, and we know the town has adopted solar in a big way, and we're happy to have participated in that. We're the developer of a project on Quaker Highway at 385 Quaker Highway. We're also a landowner in Uxbridge. We own the site, and so we're very honored to be selected to develop the Hazel Street project. on the landfill there, and happy to go into more details on the landfill.
I'd like to point out that some of the aerial stills of what's going to be proposed are going to be available for viewing at Town Hall. We also have a more full description and some of the pictures actually within the warrant that is available at the town clerk's office, the Council on Aging, and at the library as well.
Great, thank you. So as David mentioned, we are proposing development on the closed landfill site at 558 Hazel Street. And to just orient on the project here, the Route 146 runs just to the south of the site, Hazel Street to the north, and there is a car yard, a junkyard, just to the east of the property. There are very few abutters to the property that are in active use. There are no residential homes immediately near the property, so we feel it's a great site for solar, and as David mentioned, landfills in particular. It's a great complementary use to a site that's been environmentally impacted. So what we've proposed is a 2 megawatt AC, 2.6 megawatt DC solar facility on the closed landfill, and as you can see, the site kind of wraps around a wetland, and there's a large depression in the middle of the site. We are proposing, for those who've not seen a solar project of this kind, the solar panels up on racks and rows spaced about 10 to 12 feet apart. Because of the topography of the site, the row spacing will vary somewhat. But we are beginning the development process now. We have applied to connect the project with National Grid, who are the utility serving the site and as everyone knows, the area. And looking forward to engaging with the town on the pilot tax agreement process and the lease.
So just for a clarification on that, as with the Sutton Street article, when this went out to bid through the RFP process, we had 4 bidders on this particular parcel, and Blue Wave wound up being the successful bidder. All of this is subject to negotiation, especially with the way the winter was. It was very, very difficult to have engineers out there to really check the site to make sure that the full size of the array will be able to be realized, especially keeping in mind that there is a wetlands area centered right in the middle of it. So all of that will be under negotiation. Now that the weather's cleared, we can actually, the company will be able to get out there, we'll be able to take its measurements and be able to firm that up. But there's 2 components of this. There is the payment in lieu of tax or pilot agreement, which basically is based on taxation. It's based on whatever the taxation of the equipment would be over a 20-year period, and then basically negotiated into an annual agreement that does not vary, which helps the company with its revenue projections and helps the town with stabilized revenue. The other portion is a land lease component. Most of these solar sites in towns right now, actually all of them, with the exception of the Sutton Street parcel that we're discussing as well as this one, are on private land. So when we do a payment in lieu of tax agreement with private land, oftentimes the taxation with that land is brought into the agreement. In these cases, there will be no land taxation. There will only be taxation based on the equipment installed. So all of this is pursuant to negotiation. Those negotiations are ongoing. And as with the Sutton Street property, our goal is to take the funds that are received through either one of these agreements, if ratified by town meeting, if the land is allowed to be used for solar by town meeting. We intend to use these for DPW road and equipment improvements exclusively over the 20-year period. So that's our goal with this, It's not all, as I've said before, it's not all of what DPW needs, but it certainly is a dedicated start, and that's what our goal is. So just getting back to the actual project, Mike, if I can ask, just a couple of things. Obviously, citing something on a capped landfill, some would have concerns about puncturing the cap. You know, what do you do to make sure that you maintain that integrity? Do you have that type of experience? What can you say to that?
Absolutely. I'd start with experience. So Blue Wave has developed, we were actually the developer of the first solar project, at least east of the Mississippi, on a federal Superfund site. It's a highly impacted site in New Bedford called Sullivan's Ledge. Required a very high degree of strict construction controls to manage exactly issues like that. You know, no soil disturbance and no puncturing or impacting of the cap on that particular site. We're also actively developing projects in Webster on the landfill there, just down the road, and in the town of Rehoboth on that landfill, both obviously publicly selected development projects. So the specific procedures, first and foremost, unlike some of the other projects in town where you see the posts driven into the ground, for a solar project on a landfill, we use what's called, it's a ballasted racking solution. So similar to what you see on a rooftop, the panels and racks are held down by trays that sit flush on the ground and are weighted down with ballast as opposed to puncturing into the landfill cap. As far as construction procedures, how to get vehicles on and off the cap without impacting or puncturing the landfill. We have worked with contractors in the past and would absolutely do so here that have very deep experience, having built 10s, 20s, several projects and megawatts worth of projects on landfills, and are very experienced in transferring to vehicles that are below the gross weight that's allowable on the landfill cap, and managing the flow of materials on and off the cap so that we do not have any kind of adverse impact. That contractor is also bonded and insured, as is the development company that builds the project. So,
all right. Can you tell me just a little bit as to if there's any appreciable noise from the inverters?
Absolutely. The Massachusetts Clean Energy Center actually produced a study that we often refer to that likens the noise from an inverter at about 150 feet to the noise environment of a quiet office environment. It's a very low decibel level. With the inverter siting that we're anticipating here, which is just on the north edge of the site, we would be well away at that distance even from Hazel Street, let alone any abutter that would be nearby. So it's when the sun's shining on a summer day, the inverter does produce some noise, but in our experience, it's a very acceptable noise level given where we're able to site the inverter.
Okay. One question that's come up in the past on some of these, especially if you're looking at town-owned land, is what happens at the end of the 20-year cycle. Just for the viewing audience to understand, we require a bond from any company that's developing on town-owned property that pays for the full removal of the equipment at the end of the cycle, or anywhere in the middle if for some reason the developer went bankrupt or sold the array and that developer went bankrupt. Either way, if for some reason the terms of the lease are voided and the equipment needs to leave, we are provided with a bond that will allow us to return the site to its original condition. So the goal here is to realize that solar itself is a transitory power source. It does not involve any permanent changes to the site, and in the end, whenever the lease period is up, it reverts back to where it was. Mike, do you have anything else you'd like to add about the project?
No, just to follow on your last comment, that's absolutely right. And of the 20 some odd projects that we've developed and are now either under construction or built in the Commonwealth, on almost every single one we've provided that kind of surety. So that's something that we're in the custom of and that we expect to do. And on your other point, you know, the ballasted racks follow the contours of the site as it exists today. We don't anticipate any, you know, earth moving or other changes to the site. So we're a quiet neighbor, a pretty low impact use, and at the end of the lease and at the end of the system's life, we anticipate, you know, basically leaving it the way we found it.
Great.
So,
thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate you coming in. I think is it safe to say that you'll be in hand at town meeting for any questions that may be asked?
absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
I just have two other articles that I'm going to go over in this particular session. Both have to do with solar power. They're pretty quick. They happen to be article number 21, which is a payment in lieu of tax agreement for 62 and 74 Commerce Drive. Basically, town meeting has seen quite a few of these come through. This might be number 4, I do believe. This is looking for permission for the town manager to negotiate a pilot agreement on a 0.72 megawatt AC or 1.0 megawatt DC plant that's going on private property on 62 and 74 Commerce Drive. We actually had a groundbreaking on that one last week, and it was very interesting to watch that happen. But that agreement will be up at town meeting. And the other one is Article 22, which is a payment in lieu of tax agreement for 164 Providence Street. This is actually going to be split into 2 and become 2 payment in lieu of tax agreements. The land itself is 9.61 acres. It's known as 164 Providence Street right now. It's going to be subdivided into 2 parcels in FY 2016, being described as 142 Providence Street and the original 164. So these are going to basically be two power plants with a combined capacity of about 1.7 megawatts AC or 2.0 megawatts DC. Once again, it's a standard thing. Town meeting's done it before. These have not been negotiated yet. We're just seeking authorization for the negotiation. So that's it for all of the solar. There's 4 articles having to do with solar at the spring annual town meeting. I'd like to thank you for watching this program. We have a companion program that will briefly go through the rest of the articles on the warrant. It's a rather lengthy warrant, especially with a special town meeting put in the same night having to do with the fire station. So that program will probably be a little bit longer, but I'm going to do my best to go through them rather quickly. Once again, warrants are available at Town Hall, at the Senior Center, and at the library, starting around April 30th. We encourage everybody who's interested to attend town meeting on May 12th at 7 o'clock at the high school on 300 Quaker Highway. And also, please make sure that you vote in the annual election, which takes place the following Tuesday on May 19th. Thank you very much.